So today we're tackling the biggest, most complicated, but most important topic. That was the first question I had when I was getting ready to bring home my first goats, which is, what should I feed my dairy goat? Unfortunately, there's not one answer. So I give you permission to skip ahead. We have chapters depending on what kind of animal you are feeding. Are you feeding a wether? Are you feeding a buck? Are you feeding a lactating doe? Pregnant doe, a junior kid? So the answer is going to be different, and you can go ahead and find those chapters. This is the dummy's guide to feeding goats. I'm not going to get into the value of first, second, and third and cutting hay. I'm not going to talk about calcium to phosphorus. Those are all important things, but this is when you're just getting started. You're heading to the feed store. What should I buy? So we're going to get right into it. This is what you call grass hay. You can see it's fine. It's nice and green. What do you think, Jackson? Is it okay? Grass hay has more carbohydrates, less protein, and calcium. This is what we feed to our bucks and our wethers. Our does get some of this as well, and they prefer it. The finer, the better. Grass hay comes in many varieties. There is Timothy grass. There is orchard grass, which is typically what we feed our goats, depending on what's available and depending on how it looks. If it's not real fine and soft and green like this, mine won't touch it. Taking a look at alfalfa. This has a much stemmier, this is not necessarily the nicest alfalfa, body, but you see it has these really fine, soft, big green leaves that the goats will go nuts for. It's like goat crack. Nothing beats alfalfa in the eyes of a goat. So this is much higher in calcium and double the amount of protein. Not so many carbohydrates. This is what we're going to feed to our lactating does who are producing milk. So if you think about it, this has calcium in it. And what's in milk? Calcium. So their body needs a lot of extra to produce that milk. So hay is not to be confused with this other term, straw. I know, in my head I thought they were all the same darn thing before I had animals. But straw is this very golden, dry grass that you use for bedding. It has very little nutritional value. It does have some fiber in it. The goats, when you clean their pens and you put it down, do love to chew on it. I see that babies sometimes, this will be the first thing they eat. But this is just straw. Straw is just what we use for bedding or what you use as your seat at a picnic. It is not a food that we feed to our goats. Let's talk about our does in milk. These are does who are currently lactating, not pregnant, but producing milk that is being milked twice a day. These girls need the heaviest amount of nutrition. They are putting their resources into that milk every single day. So these ladies are getting primarily alfalfa, but also getting grass hay. It's nice, about maybe 80% grass hay and 20% alfalfa. It's a nice balance if you have it. If you don't feed these ladies alfalfa, your milk production is going to go down. There's just no two ways about it. So we'll leave that out here, free choice for our does throughout the day. They do have access to I won't call it much of a pasture, but they do have access to our weeds. In addition to the alfalfa and grass hay, our milking does receive chaff hay on the milk stand, which is a fermented alfalfa. It can be hard to find. You've got to find a feed store that carries it. It's kind of damp. It's more easily digestible. And we go ahead and put down a big handful of that for our milking does. We also add in black oil sunflower seeds, which you can find in the bird seed section at any feed store. And then we actually top that with sprouted barley, which we sprout here at the farm in half-gallon mason jars. The ideal sprouting age is 3 days. You can find pretty easy tutorials on how to sprout your own grains online. Maybe I'll do a video about that someday. And this goes on top of their rations when they're up here on the milking stand. This combination has worked out well for us in producing high lactating does and also maintaining their body condition. We keep feeding our bucks and our wethers very, very simple. These guys just get grass hay. If it's wintertime or it's breeding season and I think they need a little bit of extra nutrition, I might throw some alfalfa in there. But generally speaking, bucks are happy with just grass hay. They don't need much else. What didn't I say that I feed them? I do not feed my bucks any grain ever. Male goats are at risk of what's called urinary calculi. This can build up and block their ability to urinate. And if that happens, it is a medical emergency. You have to snip the pizzle or they will burst and die. So no grain. You guys got that? No grain for your wethers or your bucks. They don't need it. This is our wean kid pen, and we have kids who are no longer drinking milk, but they are still growing. These girls are about 4 months old. So for their nutrition, they're still growing bones, not yet lactating, not yet growing babies, not breeding them yet. So for these ladies, they receive grass hay, and then once a day I bring them some chaff hay and some black oil sunflower seeds. This is going to help them continue growing those bones nice and strong until they're about full grown at 18 months old. So what about pregnant does? This is a first freshener, meaning she's never lactated before. She's due in about 2 weeks. For these girls, they will not be getting any grain until maybe a couple days before they kid, or just after, as soon as they kid. If this was a doe who was still in milk but also pregnant, I would continue giving her grain until she is dried off. And at that point, I would not be giving her any grain anymore for fear that she would become too fat and have trouble during kidding. That is a major concern. So in addition to the hay and water, our goats of all ages, all sexes, always have a good quality, loose mineral, free choice, and clean, fresh water buckets. They don't like dirty water. If it's a hot day, they like cold water. If it's freezing winter, bring them some warm water. They'll love you for it. So never without a doubt, always clean water and minerals. Something that's kind of controversial these days is baking soda. In the past, it was said you always needed to have baking soda free choice for your goats in case they bloat. I've been experimenting with not serving it, and now I only have been offering it when I see there's a pregnant doe who's having a hard time digesting, or also when it's spring and the grass is growing really lush. That can be a lot on their little digestive tract, so they might balloon up with some bloat. So I do offer it then as well. But my jury's still out as to whether or not I think baking soda is absolutely necessary. So the last most important thing is there's not one right way to feed your goat. When you ask anyone who raises goats what you should feed them, everyone will have a different answer. And they're not wrong. The most important thing is to see the body condition of your goats. How are your goats handling their lactations with what you're feeding them, making sure they're not getting too fat or too thin, that they have a nice coat, they're receiving enough minerals to be healthy and not have issues kidding. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. So use your judgment, watch your animals, adjust as needed. Don't just do it because I told you to do it. Do it because it's working for you. There's not one answer.